The research station Meridian floated silently in the void between star systems, its hull scarred by centuries of cosmic dust and radiation. Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her face against the observation deck's reinforced glass, watching the strange object that had appeared on their sensors 3 days ago. "It's definitely artificial," her colleague Marcus Chen said, joining her at the window. "But the energy signatures don't match any known technology. Not human, not Solani, not even those crystal ships the Vorthak use." Elena nodded, her breath fogging the glass. The object was massive, easily the size of a small moon and perfectly spherical. Its surface seemed to shift between metallic silver and deep purple like oil on water. Most unsettling of all, it pulsed with a slow, rhythmic light like a heartbeat. "The Council wants us to investigate," Marcus continued. "They're sending the exploration vessel Prometheus, but that's still 2 weeks out. Command thinks we should start preliminary scans." Elena frowned. The Meridian was a research station, not an exploration vessel. They had basic scanning equipment and a small shuttle, but nothing designed for first contact with unknown alien technology. Still, the discovery was too important to ignore. In the 300 years since humanity had first ventured beyond Earth, they'd encountered dozens of alien species, but most were either primitive or had technology similar to their own. This object was different, ancient, powerful. "What do our deep scans show?" Elena asked. Marcus activated his tablet, displaying a complex series of readouts. "The outer shell is some kind of metamaterial we've never seen before. It's simultaneously conducting and insulating energy, which should be impossible, but that's not the strangest part." He swiped to another screen, showing a 3-dimensional cross-section of the object. Elena's eyes widened. The sphere wasn't solid. It was hollow, with intricate structures visible throughout its interior. And at the very center was a smaller chamber, roughly the size of a human room. "There's something in there," Marcus said quietly. "Something alive." Elena stared at the scan. The biosignatures were faint but unmistakable. A single life form, larger than human, resting in what appeared to be some kind of stasis chamber. The reading suggested the being had been there for an incredibly long time. The station's computer estimated at least 500 years, possibly much longer. "We need to get closer," Elena said. Marcus shook his head. "Elena, this could be dangerous. We don't know anything about this species or their technology. For all we know, this could be some kind of trap or weapon. Or it could be someone who needs help," Elena countered. "Look at these readings, Marcus. Whatever's in there has been sleeping for centuries. Maybe they're lost or their ship broke down. We can't just leave them." This was typical Elena, Marcus thought. In the 10 years they'd worked together, she'd never backed down from helping someone in need, whether they were human or alien. It was one of the things he admired about her, even when it made him nervous. "At least let me pilot the shuttle," Marcus said. "You can monitor from here and guide me through the scans." Elena shook her head. "I'm going with you. This is too important for remote scans. We need detailed readings, and I'm the only one on the station qualified to interpret xenobiological data." Marcus sighed, knowing there was no point in arguing. When Elena made up her mind about something, she was unstoppable. "Fine, but we go in carefully. Full environmental suits, all sensors active, and we maintain constant contact with the station." 2 hours later, their shuttle approached the alien sphere. Up close, the object was even more impressive. The surface wasn't smooth as it had appeared from a distance. It was covered in intricate patterns that seemed to move and shift as they watched. The pulsing light was stronger here, washing over their shuttle in waves of purple and silver. "The patterns are definitely some kind of writing," Elena said, studying her readings. "Or maybe a technical schematic. It's too complex to understand without more study." "I'm detecting an opening," Marcus said, pointing to a section of the sphere where the patterns had begun to spiral inward, creating what looked like a doorway. "It's almost like it's responding to our presence." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "The biosignatures are getting stronger. Whatever's in there, I think it knows we're here." The shuttle passed through the opening, and they found themselves in a vast chamber filled with a soft, breathable atmosphere. The walls were lined with the same shifting patterns, but here they glowed more brightly, creating an almost hypnotic effect. In the center of the chamber, suspended in a column of blue light, was another sphere, this one much smaller and translucent. "There," Elena whispered, pointing. Inside the smaller sphere, they could see a figure floating in some kind of fluid. It was humanoid, but clearly alien. Tall and graceful, with pale blue skin and long white hair that moved gently in the suspension medium. Most striking of all were the delicate wing-like appendages extending from its back and the elegant crown-like structure on its head. Definitely female, Elena said, studying the scans. And the crown suggests she might be some kind of royalty or leader. A princess, maybe. Can we wake her up? Marcus asked. Elena frowned at her readings. I'm not sure. The stasis technology is incredibly advanced, but there's something wrong. The power levels are dropping. This system has been running for so long that it's starting to fail. As if summoned by her words, alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. The blue light flickering around the princess began to pulse erratically, and her biosignatures showed signs of distress. Elena, we need to do something, Marcus said urgently. If this system fails completely, she'll die. Elena's mind raced through the possibilities. They didn't understand the alien technology, and attempting to interface with it could make things worse. But the alternative was watching someone die while they stood helplessly by. I'm going to try to establish a connection, Elena said, reaching for her portable interface unit. Maybe if I can boost the power somehow or at least stabilize the system. Elena, that's incredibly dangerous. We don't know how this technology might affect you. Elena was already connecting her equipment to what appeared to be a control panel on the stasis chamber. Sometimes you have to take risks to save a life. The moment her systems connected with the alien technology, Elena felt a jolt of energy surge through her. For a brief instant she felt something else, a presence. Ancient and beautiful, reaching out across the void of sleep toward the first touch of warmth it had felt in centuries. The sleeping princess's eyes fluttered open, revealing orbs of startling violet that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages, and for the first time in over 500 years she was no longer alone. The princess's eyes opened slowly, like someone waking from the deepest dream. Elena felt her breath catch as those violet orbs focused on her, through the translucent walls of the stasis chamber. There was intelligence there and something else. A profound sadness that seemed to have been carried across centuries. The connection is stabilizing, Elena said, monitoring her equipment. Her vital signs are getting stronger. The blue fluid around the princess began to drain away and the chamber walls started to retract. Marcus instinctively stepped back, but Elena moved closer, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. The princess was tall, nearly 7 feet, and ethereally beautiful. Her pale blue skin had an almost luminescent quality, and the wing-like appendages on her back were revealed to be delicate, translucent membranes shot through with silver veins. As the last of the fluid drained away, she took her first breath in 5 centuries with a sound like wind chimes. She tried to speak, but only managed a weak whisper in a language neither human had ever heard. It sounded like music, melodic and flowing, with notes that seemed to hang in the air longer than they should. Easy, Elena said softly, holding up her hands in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. We're here to help. The princess's eyes darted between Elena and Marcus, taking in their strange appearance and equipment. Elena could see the confusion and fear in her expression. To wake up after centuries of sleep to find aliens in your sanctuary would be terrifying for anyone. Marcus activated his universal translator, a device that had proven invaluable in first contact situations with other species. It hummed quietly as it analyzed the princess's vocalizations and attempted to build a linguistic framework. The princess spoke again, her voice growing stronger. This time Elena caught what sounded like urgency in her tone, even if she couldn't understand the words. The translator needs more data, Marcus said, but I think she's asking questions. Probably wants to know who we are and what we're doing here. Elena nodded and pointed to herself. Elena, she said clearly. Then she pointed to Marcus. Marcus. She gestured to both of them and said, Human. The princess tilted her head considering this. She placed a graceful hand on her chest and spoke a word that sounded like silver bells ringing. Lyra Lai. Then she gestured to herself and said something longer that the translator couldn't parse yet. Lyra Lai, Elena repeated, and the princess's expression brightened slightly at hearing her name pronounced by an alien tongue. Suddenly, Lyra Lai staggered and Elena rushed forward to catch her. The princess was surprisingly light, but her skin felt warm and electric against Elena's gloves. For a moment their eyes met, and Elena felt that strange connection again, as if Lyrelei was seeing directly into her soul. "She's weak," Elena said. 500 years in stasis would take a toll on anyone. Marcus was studying his readings. "Elena, look at this. The ship's systems are failing everywhere. Whatever kept her alive all this time, it's shutting down now that she's awake." As if to emphasize his point, the lights in the chamber began to flicker, and a low groaning sound echoed through the walls. Lyrelei's eyes widened in alarm, and she spoke rapidly in her musical language. Even without translation, her meaning was clear. They were in danger. "We need to get her to our shuttle," Elena said. "Now." But Lyrelei shook her head vigorously and pointed to something across the chamber. Elena followed her gaze and saw what appeared to be a control room, its surfaces covered in the same shifting patterns as the rest of the ship. "I think she wants to show us something," Elena said. Marcus shook his head. "Elena, this ship is falling apart around us. We need to evacuate." But Lyrelei was already moving, despite her weakness, heading toward the control room with determination. Elena followed, and after a moment's hesitation, so did Marcus. The control room was a marvel of alien engineering. Holographic displays showed star charts that Elena recognized, this region of space but from long ago. The positions of the stars were subtly different, confirming that Lyrelei had indeed been asleep for centuries. Lyrelei touched a series of panels, and the displays changed. Now they showed what appeared to be a battle. Ships of her design fighting against something else. Something dark and insectoid with vessels that seemed to eat light itself. "The Devourers," Lyrelei said, and the translator caught the word, rendering it in English with ominous undertones. She pointed to the dark ships and spoke more rapidly, her voice filled with urgency. The translator was working better now, picking up more of her language. So coming back. Wake the, protect." "She's trying to warn us about something," Elena said. "These Devourers, they're some kind of enemy." Lyrelei nodded enthusiastically when she heard Elena say Devourers, then pulled up another display. This one showed a timeline of sorts with various symbols marking important events. The battle they'd just seen was centuries in the past, but there was another symbol near the end of the timeline, near what Elena realized must be the present day. "They're returning," Marcus said, understanding dawning in his voice. "She's been sleeping here for 500 years, waiting for them to come back." Lyrelei spoke again, and this time the translator managed to parse most of it. "I am Guardian Princess of the Astral Courts, sworn to watch, to warn. The Devourers return when the twin stars align. Soon, very soon." Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the failing ship systems. "What twin stars? When do they align?" Lyrelei manipulated the star chart, zooming in on a binary system about 50 light-years away. Elena recognized it, Kepler 442, where humanity had recently established a mining colony. "Next lunar cycle," the translator rendered Lyrelei's response. "When the stars dance as one, the pathway opens. The Devourers will come through." The ship shuddered violently and alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Lyrelei spoke urgently, gesturing toward a series of crystal-like devices mounted around the control room. "Memory crystals," she explained through the translator. "Everything we learned about the Devourers. How to fight them, how to close the pathways. Your people must know." Elena was already moving, helping Lyrelei gather the crystals. Each one was about the size of her fist and warm to the touch. She could feel data flowing within them, vast amounts of information compressed into crystalline matrices. "Elena, the ship's hull is starting to crack," Marcus warned. "We have maybe 5 minutes before this whole thing comes apart." Lyrelei pressed the last crystal into Elena's hands, then did something unexpected. She took Elena's face in her hands and pressed their foreheads together. Elena felt a surge of alien consciousness touch her mind, images, emotions, and knowledge flowing between them. She saw glimpses of a vast galactic civilization, beautiful worlds where Lyrelei's people had lived in harmony for millennia. She felt the horror of the Devourer invasion, the desperate last stands, the decision to go into stasis and wait for help to arrive, and she felt something else. Gratitude, warm and overwhelming, that after 5 centuries of solitude, someone had finally answered the call. "Come with us," Elena said as they broke the connection. Our people need to hear this from you. Lyra Lee nodded, but Elena could see the exhaustion in her eyes. Waking from such a long sleep, accessing her ship's systems, and sharing her memories had taken everything she had left. Together, the three of them made their way back to the shuttle as Lyra Lee's ancient ship began its final death throes around them. As they lifted off, Elena looked back to see the sphere collapsing in on itself, its 500-year vigil finally at an end. But its guardian was awake now, and the warning had been delivered. The question was, would humanity be ready for what was coming? The medical bay aboard Research Station Meridian had never hosted an alien patient before, especially not one who had been asleep for 5 centuries. Dr. Sarah Kim worked carefully around Princess Lyra Lee, monitoring her recovery while trying not to stare at her otherworldly beauty. Her physiology is remarkable, Dr. Kim reported to Elena. Her cellular structure is completely different from anything we've seen. It's like she's part organic, part energy. The stasis didn't just preserve her, it actually enhanced her natural healing abilities. Elena nodded, but her attention was focused on the memory crystals spread across the table before her. Over the past 2 days, their science team had been working around the clock to decode them, and what they'd found was both fascinating and terrifying. The Astral Court civilization was incredible, Elena explained to Captain Reynolds, the station commander. They existed for over 10,000 years, spanning hundreds of worlds. Their technology was based on harmonizing energy with matter. That's why their ships look organic. But the Devourers destroyed it all in less than a century. Captain Reynolds studied the holographic displays Elena had managed to activate from the crystals. They showed the Devourer ships in detail, massive insectoid vessels that seemed to absorb light and energy. Where they passed, stars dimmed and planets became lifeless husks. What exactly are they? Captain Reynolds asked. From what we can understand, they're from another dimension, Elena replied. They exist in a realm where energy works differently, and they come through rifts in space-time to feed on our universe's energy. They're not just conquering, they're literally consuming reality itself. A soft voice spoke from the medical bay. Your understanding is mostly correct. They turned to see Lyra Lee sitting up in bed, her violet eyes alert despite her obvious exhaustion. The translator device attached to her throat rendered her musical language into English, though something of its beauty was lost in translation. Princess, Elena said, moving to her side. You should rest. The medical scan showed extensive cellular reconstruction. Lyra Lee shook her head. There is no time for rest. The alignment draws near, and your people must understand what they face. She looked at Captain Reynolds. You are a leader among your kind? I command this station, Reynolds replied carefully. But I report to the Colonial Council. They make the major decisions for humanity. Then you must contact them immediately, Lyra Lee said, struggling to stand. Elena moved to help her, and again felt that strange electric connection when their skin touched. The Devourers do not simply destroy civilizations, they erase them from existence. Every world they consume, every life they take becomes part of their hunger. Your species faces extinction. Captain Reynolds' expression darkened. Our military forces have dealt with hostile aliens before. We have weapons, shields, tactical experience. Lyra Lee's laugh was like wind through crystal chimes, but there was no humor in it. Honored Captain, the Astral Courts commanded the power of stars themselves. We could reshape matter with thought, travel between dimensions, bend the very fabric of space to our will. The Devourers consumed us as easily as you might consume water. The bridge fell silent. Elena felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the true scope of what they were facing. But you survived, Marcus pointed out. You found a way to stop them before. We did not stop them, Lyra Lee corrected sadly. We merely forced them to retreat to their dimension to recover. The portals they use to cross between realms can only remain stable when certain cosmic conditions are met. The last time we managed to disrupt their anchor points and collapse the rifts, but it cost us everything. She activated one of the memory crystals and the air filled with holographic images of the final battle. Elena watched in awe and horror as ships the size of moons fought desperately around a massive portal in space. The Astral Court vessels moved like living things, their organic curves flowing through impossible maneuvers. But they were vastly outnumbered by the dark swarm of Devourer ships. We knew they would return when the stars aligned again, Lyra Lee continued. That is why I entered the long sleep, to wait and warn whoever might listen. My people sacrificed themselves to give future generations a chance. Captain Reynolds leaned forward. What do we need to do? Lirelei manipulated the crystal display, showing a complex diagram of the portal structure. The Devourers require specific energy resonances to open and maintain their portals. These resonances are created by the gravitational interaction of binary star systems during certain alignments. Your scientists call the target system Kepler 4m42. Elena's blood ran cold. The mining colony. There are 50,000 people there. They will be the first consumed, Lirelei said quietly, but not the last. Once the portal is established, the Devourers will spread throughout your galaxy like a plague. So we evacuate the colony and destroy the portal, Captain Reynolds said. Problem solved. Lirelei shook her head. It is not so simple. The portal cannot be destroyed by conventional weapons. It exists partially outside your dimension, and the Devourers have had 500 years to prepare. They will be stronger now, more numerous. Elena studied the crystal displays, her scientific mind racing through the possibilities. There has to be something. Your people found a way to stop them before? Yes, Lirelei said slowly, but it required a sacrifice none of your kind should have to make. She manipulated another crystal, showing what appeared to be a massive device at the center of the astral court fleet. We called it the Harmony Engine. It could synchronize energy across vast distances, create resonances that would disrupt the Devourer's portal technology. Elena leaned closer, studying the device's construction. It was elegant and terrifying at the same time, a fusion of organic and technological components that seemed to pulse with its own life. But the engine required a living consciousness to guide it. Lirelei continued. Someone had to merge their life force with the device, becoming one with it permanently. My sister. Her voice trailed off, and Elena saw tears gathering in her violet eyes. She gave her life to save the galaxy, Elena said softly. Lirelei nodded. And now I am the last of my kind with the knowledge to build another engine. But I am weak from the long sleep, and your technology is so different from ours. I do not know if it can be done. Captain Reynolds stood up abruptly. I need to contact the council immediately. This information changes everything. He paused at the door. Princess, how long do we have? Lirelei consulted a display showing the current stellar positions. 17 of your days until the alignment reaches its peak. After that, the portal will stabilize and nothing will be able to close it. After the captain left, Elena remained with Lirelei, studying the memory crystals. The more she learned about astral court technology, the more amazed she became. Their science was based on principles humanity was only beginning to understand. The connection between consciousness and quantum mechanics. The way living minds could influence energy fields at the subatomic level. Your people accomplished incredible things, Elena said. And yet we failed when it mattered most, Lirelei replied bitterly. If we had been wiser, more prepared, the Devourers would never have gained such a foothold in our dimension. Elena looked at her carefully. You blame yourself. I was guardian princess, Lirelei said. It was my duty to protect our realm. Instead, I hid in sleep while my people died. Elena reached out and took Lirelei's hand, feeling that electric connection again. You didn't hide. You waited. You kept the knowledge alive so that when the Devourers returned, someone would be ready for them. Lirelei looked into Elena's eyes, and for a moment, the profound sadness there lifted slightly. Your species is very different from mine, Elena Vasquez. We were created for harmony, for peace. You humans. You were forged in struggle. Perhaps that will make the difference. Elena squeezed her hand gently. We're going to find a way to stop them. Together. But as she said the words, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they were racing against impossible odds. 17 days to build a weapon that had taken the astral courts generations to perfect. To face an enemy that had consumed an entire galactic civilization. Still, humanity had one advantage the astral courts hadn't. They knew the Devourers were coming. And sometimes, Elena thought, advance warning was all you needed to turn certain defeat into possible victory. The question was whether 17 days would be enough. The emergency session of the Colonial Council was unlike anything in humanity's history. Representatives from 57 worlds had gathered via quantum communication, their holographic forms flickering around the massive circular table on Luna Station. At the center of it all, Princess Lirelei stood with quiet dignity, her ethereal presence a stark contrast to the urgent voices filling the chamber. "You're asking us to believe that an enemy we've never heard of is about to destroy our entire civilization," Council Leader Harrison said skeptically. "Based on the word of one alien survivor?" Elena stepped forward, her datapad displaying the translated information from the memory crystals. "Counselor Harrison, we've verified the princess's claims through multiple sources. Our deep space sensors have detected energy fluctuations in the Kepler 4E42 system that match exactly what she described. Something is building there." "Energy fluctuations could mean anything," objected Counselor Zhang from the Tau Ceti colony. "Solar flares, magnetic storms, equipment malfunctions. We can't mobilize the entire colonial fleet based on ancient ghost stories." Lyrili remained calm despite the obvious tension in the room. When she spoke, her translated words carried a weight that cut through the arguments. "Honored leaders, I understand your skepticism. My own people refused to believe the warnings until the first worlds began to vanish. By then it was too late for preparation." She gestured, and the room's holographic displays shifted to show the memory crystal recordings. The council members fell silent as they watched the final battle of the astral courts, an entire galactic civilization fighting desperately against the dark swarm of devourer ships. "This is what happened to a people who had mastered energy itself," Lyrili continued. "What do you believe will happen to your young civilization?" Councillor Martinez from New Barcelona leaned forward. "Assuming you're correct, Princess, what do you propose? Our analysis of your people's technology shows it's centuries ahead of ours. We can't simply build this harmony engine you described." Elena cleared her throat. "Actually, Counselor, we've made some progress on that front." She activated her own presentation, showing schematics that merged human and astral court technology. "The Princess has been working with our engineers for the past week. While we can't replicate their bioenergy matrices exactly, we think we can adapt the principles to our technology." The display showed a massive device that looked like a fusion of human engineering and alien artistry. Where the original Harmony engine had been purely organic, this version incorporated quantum processors, fusion reactors, and crystalline energy conduits. The hybrid design would work differently, Elena explained. Instead of requiring a single consciousness to merge with the device, it would distribute the mental load across multiple operators. The challenge is that it requires a level of psychic sensitivity that most humans don't possess. "Most humans," Counselor Harrison noted. "But not all?" Elena glanced at Lyrili, who nodded encouragingly. "The Princess has been testing our people for what she calls dimensional resonance. It's the ability to interface with energy fields at a quantum level. So far we've found about 1 in 10,000 humans have any sensitivity at all, and only 1 in a million have enough to potentially operate the engine." 1 in a million, Counselor Zhang said grimly. "With our current population of 8 billion, that gives us maybe 8,000 candidates. How many do we need?" "For the hybrid design to work, we would need at least 12 operators with maximum sensitivity," Lyrili replied. "And they would need to train together, to learn to synchronize their consciousness. This is not something that can be rushed." The chamber erupted in overlapping conversations. Elena could hear fragments of arguments, some calling for immediate evacuation of all border colonies, others demanding more proof, still others suggesting they attempt diplomatic contact with the devourers. Silence. Council Leader Harrison's voice cut through the chaos. "Princess Lyrili, in your opinion, what are our chances of success if we attempt to build this weapon?" Lyrili was quiet for a long moment. "Counselor Harrison, I will not lie to you. The chances are small. The original Harmony engine was built over centuries by a civilization that understood the deepest mysteries of existence. You have days, not decades, but—" She paused, and Elena saw something in her violet eyes, a spark of hope that hadn't been there before. "But your species has something mine did not," Lyrili continued. "We Astral Court were shaped by millennia of peace. We thought in terms of harmony and balance. When conflict came, we were unprepared for the brutality required to fight it. You humans, however—" She looked around the room at the assembled leaders. "You have known war, struggle, survival against impossible odds. These things are written into your very souls." Counselor Martinez stood up. "Even if we had the people and the technology, we still have the same problem your people faced. Someone would have to merge with the device permanently. You said the hybrid design distributes the load, but is it still a death sentence?" Elena felt her heart sink. They'd been working on that exact problem for days, and the answer was always the same. The quantum resonance required to disrupt the Devourer portals would overwhelm any human nervous system. The operators might survive the initial activation, but the long-term exposure to those energy levels... She shook her head. We're talking about cellular breakdown at the molecular level. The chamber fell silent again. Elena could see the weight of decision settling on the council members' faces. They were being asked to authorize a project that would likely kill their best and brightest with no guarantee of success. There may be another way, Lyrelay said suddenly. Something I had not considered before because my people lacked the capability. But humans are different. She activated a new display showing the quantum structure of the Harmony engine in unprecedented detail. The original design required a permanent merger because astral court consciousness could not withstand disconnection from such energy levels. But human consciousness is more adaptable, more chaotic. It might be possible to create a temporary connection, long enough to activate the engine but brief enough to allow the operators to survive. Elena studied the new schematics with growing excitement. A burst transmission instead of a sustained connection. It would require perfect timing and incredible precision, but it might work, Counselor Harrison finished. How long would we have to prepare? Lyrelay consulted her internal chronometer. 10 days until the stellar alignment reaches critical phase. After that, the Devourer portal will begin forming and our window will close. The debate that followed was intense but brief. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Humanity would attempt to build the hybrid Harmony engine. The colonial fleet would begin immediate evacuation of the Kepler 442 system while simultaneously searching for candidates with the required dimensional resonance The council session ended and the holographic representatives began to fade away. Elena found herself alone with Lyrelay in the conference chamber. Do you really think this will work? Elena asked. Lyrelay was silent for a moment, her violet eyes distant. Elena, in all my centuries of life I have learned that the universe rarely gives easy answers. But I have also learned that hope can accomplish things that seem impossible. She turned to face Elena directly. Your people have given me something I thought lost forever. Hope that the Devourers can be stopped. Whatever happens, that gift is beyond price. Elena felt that familiar electric connection as their eyes met. We're going to need your help training the operators. Your knowledge of dimensional resonance is the only thing that gives us a chance. Of course, Lyrelay said, though I must warn you the training will be difficult. To interface with the engine, the operators must learn to expand their consciousness beyond normal human limits. Many will find the process overwhelming. Elena nodded. She was beginning to understand that saving humanity from the Devourers would require more than just advanced technology. It would require people willing to push the boundaries of what it meant to be human. 10 days to find those people, train them, and build a weapon that existed only in theory. 10 days to save not just humanity, but perhaps all life in the galaxy. Elena looked out through the observation deck at the stars beyond, knowing that somewhere among them, an ancient enemy was preparing to emerge from the darkness. But for the first time since they'd awakened Lyrelay from her 500-year sleep, she felt a spark of genuine hope. Humanity had faced extinction before and survived. Now they would find out if they could do it again. The training facility on Mars had been transformed into something unprecedented in human history. What had once been a standard military complex now housed equipment that blended cutting-edge human technology with principles drawn from an ancient alien civilization. At the center of it all stood 12 individuals who represented humanity's last hope. Elena watched through the observation deck as Princess Lyrelay worked with the selected candidates. Finding people with the required dimensional resonance had been challenging enough. They'd tested nearly 500,000 volunteers across 50 worlds before identifying the 12 strongest. But training them to work together was proving even more difficult. Focus on the harmony between your minds, not the differences, Lyrelay instructed, her translated voice carrying an otherworldly patience. You are not 12 separate beings trying to operate one device. You must become one consciousness with 12 perspectives. The candidates sat in a circle around a smaller version of the Harmony engine, a prototype built to help them learn the mental discipline required for the real thing. They were an unusual group. Dr. Sarah Chen, a quantum physicist from New Singapore. Marcus Rodriguez, a former military pilot who'd discovered his abilities during combat stress. Yuki Tanaka, a meditation teacher from Luna Colony whose calm presence seemed to anchor the others. Each had been chosen not just for their dimensional resonance, but for their psychological stability under extreme pressure. Elena could see the strain on their faces as they attempted to synchronize their minds. Sweat beaded on their foreheads despite the cool air, and several were trembling with the effort. The prototype engine flickered with unstable energy, responding to their collective consciousness but unable to maintain a steady pattern. "I can feel them," whispered Dr. Chen, her eyes closed in concentration. "Their thoughts, their emotions. It's like trying to conduct an orchestra where everyone is playing a different symphony." "That is exactly what it is like," Lyrelei agreed. "But remember, you are not trying to force harmony. You are discovering the harmony that already exists between you." Marcus Rodriguez suddenly gasped and broke connection. The engine's glow dimming immediately. "I can't do this," he said, frustration evident in his voice. "Every time I try to reach out to the others, I feel like I'm losing myself." Elena felt her heart sink. They'd been training for 6 days already, and the group still couldn't maintain a stable connection for more than a few minutes. In 4 more days, the stellar alignment would reach its peak, and the Devourer portal would begin forming. If the operators couldn't work together by then— "Marcus," Lyrelei said gently, approaching the former pilot, "what do you fear most about connecting with the others?" Marcus looked up at her, his face troubled. "In the military, you learn to keep your thoughts private. Your fears, your doubts, you never let them show because it could get your squad killed. But when I link with the others, they can feel everything. Every mistake I've made, every moment of cowardice, every time I've failed someone." He shook his head. "How can I be part of something pure when I'm carrying all that darkness?" Lyrelei knelt beside him, her violet eyes filled with compassion. "Marcus Rodriguez, do you know what I have learned in my 5 centuries of existence? Darkness does not make one impure, it makes one complete. The astral courts failed because we knew only light, only harmony. We had no experience with struggle, with failure, with the shadows that live in every soul." She gestured to the other operators who were listening intently. "Each of you carries wounds, fears, imperfections. But these are not weaknesses, they are strengths your enemy cannot understand. The Devourers exist in a realm of absolute consumption, absolute hunger. They cannot comprehend the complexity of a mind that has known both triumph and defeat." Dr. Chen spoke up from across the circle. "The princess is right, Marcus. When I connected with you earlier, I didn't just feel your fears, I felt your courage. The way you kept flying missions even when you were terrified. That takes a strength the rest of us can draw from." Yuki Tanaka nodded. "In meditation, we learn that enlightenment comes not from eliminating darkness, but from accepting it as part of ourselves. Perhaps that's what we need to do here. Not hide our imperfections, but share them as part of our strength." Elena watched as understanding began to dawn on the operators' faces. They were approaching the connection problem from the wrong angle, trying to present only their best selves to the link instead of their complete selves. "Shall we try again?" Lyrelei asked softly. This time, when the operators formed their circle and began to connect, something was different. Elena could see it in the way they held themselves, more relaxed, more open. Instead of fighting to hide their vulnerabilities, they were sharing them. The prototype engine began to glow more steadily. The energy patterns flowing around it grew more complex but also more stable, as if the operators' acceptance of their own imperfections had actually made their connection stronger. "I can feel it," whispered Dr. Chen. "Not just our minds linking, but our experiences. Marcus's courage, Yuki's peace, Anna's determination." She named each of the 12 operators, acknowledging the unique strength each brought to the collective. For 10 minutes, then 20, then 30, they maintained the connection. The prototype engine hummed with increasing power, its energy output approaching the theoretical levels needed for the real device. Elena felt tears of relief streaming down her face as she watched humanity's last hope finally coming together. But their celebration was short-lived. An alarm began blaring throughout the facility, and Captain Morrison burst into the training room. "Princess, we've got a problem," he announced urgently. "Our deep space sensors are detecting massive energy signatures in the Kepler 442 system. The portal formation has begun 3 days ahead of schedule." Lyrelei's face went pale, her violet eyes wide with alarm. "That is impossible. The stellar alignment has not reached critical phase. Maybe your people's calculations were based on the star positions 500 years ago," Elena suggested, her mind racing. Stellar drift over that time period could have changed the alignment timing. Captain Morrison nodded grimly. Our astrophysics team confirms it. The binary stars have shifted positions slightly over the centuries. The critical alignment will occur in 18 hours, not 4 days. The training room fell silent except for the humming of the prototype engine. 18 hours. They had 18 hours to transport the operators to the Kepler 442 system, deploy the real Harmony engine, and somehow stop a portal that was already beginning to form. Can the operators handle the real device? Elena asked Lirelai urgently. The princess looked at the 12 humans who had just achieved their first stable connection. Their minds are linked now, but they have not learned to maintain that connection under stress. The real engine will require them to channel energy levels that could destroy their neural pathways if they lose focus for even a moment. Marcus Rodriguez stood up, his face set with determination. Princess, with respect, we don't have a choice. If we wait for perfect preparation, there won't be anyone left to save. One by one, the other operators rose to join him. Elena could see the fear in their eyes, but also something else. The uniquely human ability to face impossible odds with stubborn courage. We've come this far, Dr. Chen said quietly. We're not going to let humanity down now. Lirelai looked at each of them in turn, then nodded slowly. Very well, but understand. Once you activate the real Harmony engine, there will be no turning back. You will either succeed in closing the portal, or you will die in the attempt. Elena felt her heart clench as she realized what this meant. These 12 brave individuals were about to face an enemy that had destroyed an entire galactic civilization. They would have one chance, one moment of perfect synchronization, to save not just humanity but all life in the galaxy. As the operators began preparing for immediate departure, Elena caught Lirelai's arm. Is there really a chance they can survive this? Lirelai met her gaze, and Elena saw centuries of wisdom and sorrow in those violet eyes. Elena, I have learned that survival is not always about living through an ordeal. Sometimes it is about ensuring that something greater than yourself continues to exist. She looked at the departing operators. These 12 humans have already achieved something my people never could. They have found strength in their imperfections. That may be enough to accomplish the impossible. 18 hours until the fate of the galaxy would be decided. Elena only hoped that humanity's greatest strength, the ability to find hope in the darkest circumstances, would be enough to face the devourers. The colonial fleet had never assembled so quickly or with such desperate purpose. 57 ships surrounded the massive transport vessel Prometheus as it emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. At the heart of the fleet, the real Harmony engine had been installed in a specially modified cruiser, a gleaming fusion of human engineering and astral court design that pulsed with barely contained energy. Elena stood on the bridge of the command ship, watching the tactical displays with growing dread. The Devourer portal was already visible to their sensors, a dark wound in space that seemed to swallow light itself. Around it, reality appeared to bend and twist as if the fundamental laws of physics were breaking down. Energy readings are off the charts, reported Commander Hayes from the sensor station. Whatever that thing is, it's pulling power directly from the binary stars. The gravitational distortions are affecting ships 3 light minutes away. Princess Lirelai studied the portal through the view screen, her ethereal features tight with concentration. It is larger than any portal my people ever recorded. The Devourers have had 5 centuries to refine their techniques. Admiral Park, commander of the colonial fleet, turned to face them. Princess, how long before their ships start coming through? The portal must reach full stability before the Devourer fleet can traverse, Lirelai replied. Perhaps 6 hours at the current expansion rate, but smaller scout vessels could emerge at any time. As if summoned by her words, the portal suddenly flared with dark energy. Something emerged, a sleek insectoid shape about the size of a fighter craft. It moved with an unnatural fluidity, its hull seeming to absorb the light from nearby stars. All ships, weapons free, Admiral Park ordered. Engage the hostile. The fleet's response was immediate and overwhelming. Plasma cannons, missile salvos, and particle beams converged on the scout ship from dozens of angles. But when the energy barrage reached the alien vessel, something impossible happened. The attack simply vanished, absorbed into the ship's hull without leaving so much as a scorch mark. Weapons ineffective, Commander Hayes reported. his voice tight with disbelief. "The hostile is absorbing all incoming energy." The Devourer scout ship began to move toward the fleet, and Elena felt a chill run down her spine as she realized what she was seeing. "It's not just absorbing the weapons," she said. "It's getting bigger." She was right. With each energy attack it absorbed, the scout ship grew larger and more complex. What had been a simple fighter was now the size of a frigate, its hull sprouting new weapon pods and sensor arrays. "All ships cease fire," Admiral Park ordered. "Fall back to defensive positions," but it was too late. The scout ship, now grown to cruiser size, opened fire on the nearest human vessel. The weapons it unleashed were unlike anything Elena had ever seen, beams of pure darkness that seemed to unravel matter at the molecular level. The frigate Manchester simply dissolved, its hull peeling away in layers until nothing remained but empty space. "Admiral," Elena said urgently, "we need to deploy the Harmony engine now before more scouts emerge." Admiral Park nodded grimly. "Signal the Prometheus. Begin final approach to the target coordinates." The massive transport vessel broke away from the fleet, carrying its precious cargo toward the optimal position for engine deployment. Elena could see the 12 operators on the internal monitors, seated in their connection chamber around the real Harmony engine. Unlike the prototype they'd trained with, this device was massive, a crystalline structure 30 feet tall that pulsed with its own inner light. Dr. Chen's voice came over the communication system. "Elena, we're detecting massive quantum disturbances from the portal. The energy patterns are unlike anything in our databases." Elena activated her own sensors, studying the readings. What she saw made her blood run cold. "Lirale, look at this. The portal isn't just allowing ships to cross over. It's changing the fundamental structure of space-time in this region." Lirale examined the data, her violet eyes widening in alarm. "This is more advanced than anything the Devourers possessed before. They are not simply opening a doorway. They are rewriting reality to match their own dimension." "What does that mean?" Admiral Park demanded. "It means that if the portal reaches full stability, this entire star system will cease to exist in our universe," Lirale replied. "It will become part of their realm, a bridgehead from which they can spread to consume everything." The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. Not only were they facing an invasion, but the complete erasure of local spacetime. If they failed to stop the portal, it wouldn't just mean death. It would mean that this region of the galaxy would simply stop existing. "Prometheus to Fleet Command," came Marcus Rodriguez's voice over the communication system. "We're in position. Beginning engine initialization." Elena watched the monitors as the 12 operators joined hands around the Harmony engine. She could see the strain on their faces as they began to establish their mental connection, but there was also determination, the uniquely human refusal to give up in the face of impossible odds. The engine began to respond to their combined consciousness, its crystalline structure glowing brighter with each passing moment. Energy patterns flowed through its core, building toward the resonance frequency needed to disrupt the Devourer portal. "Energy output at 30% and climbing," Dr. Chen reported. "Mental synchronization is holding steady, but their progress was interrupted by another flare from the portal. This time, 3 more scout ships emerged, each one larger than the first. They immediately began moving toward the fleet, their hulls already expanding as they absorbed energy from the surrounding space. "Fleet units maintain distance from the hostiles," Admiral Park ordered. "Do not engage with energy weapons." But maintaining distance was easier said than done. The Devourer scouts moved with impossible speed and agility, weaving between the human ships while somehow growing larger without any external energy source to feed on. "Admiral," Elena said, studying her sensors, "they're not just absorbing directed energy, they're feeding on the quantum vacuum itself. They're literally consuming empty space." One of the scouts reached the destroyer Valiant before it could retreat. Elena watched in horror as the alien ship seemed to merge with the human vessel, its dark hull flowing over the destroyer's hull like liquid metal. The Valiant's crew had no time to scream before their ship was completely absorbed, adding its mass and technology to the growing scout. "Harmony engine at 60% power," Marcus reported, his voice strained with effort. "We can feel the portal structure now. It's like trying to grab smoke with our bare hands." Elena could see on the monitors that several of the operators were bleeding from their noses, the quantum energies placing enormous stress on their human nervous systems. But they held their connection, their faces set with grim determination. Another wave of energy erupted from the portal, and this time what emerged made everyone on the bridge fall silent. It was a Devourer capital ship, a massive construct the size of a small moon, its hull a writhing mass of organic and mechanical components. Unlike the Scouts, this ship didn't need to absorb energy to grow. It was already fully formed and ready for war. Engine power at 80%, Yuki Tanaka reported, her meditation training helping her maintain calm despite the impossible pressures. We're starting to affect the portal's stability matrix. The Devourer capital ship seemed to sense the threat. It turned toward the Prometheus, weapons charging with dark energy that made space itself seem to recoil. Elena realized with growing horror that they were in a race against time. Could the operators disrupt the portal before the Devourer ship destroyed the Harmony engine? All fleet units intercept that capital ship, Admiral Park ordered. Protect the Prometheus at all costs. The colonial fleet responded without hesitation, dozens of ships moving to place themselves between the Devourer vessel and the engine. Elena watched as brave men and women sailed their ships directly into the path of an enemy that had destroyed galactic civilizations. Engine power at 95%, Dr. Chen announced. Portal disruption sequence initiating in 30 seconds. The Devourer capital ship fired its main weapons, beams of absolute darkness that erased matter from existence. The cruiser Beijing simply vanished, followed by the frigates New Tokyo and Brasilia. But for every ship that died, 2 more took its place, the fleet forming an ever-tightening shield around the Prometheus. Harmony engine at full power, Marcus announced. Beginning portal collapse sequence now. Elena held her breath as she watched the 12 operators pour their combined will into the crystalline device. The engine's glow became almost blinding, and space around it began to distort as quantum energies built to levels that defied comprehension. For a moment, it seemed to be working. The portal's expansion slowed, then stopped, then began to reverse. The dark wound in space flickered and wavered, its stability finally being challenged. But then the Devourer capital ship did something unexpected. Instead of continuing to fire on the fleet, it turned and dove directly into its own portal. Elena realized with growing horror what was happening. The enemy was sacrificing their own ship to stabilize the portal from the other side. The portal is restabilizing, Lyreley announced, her voice filled with dismay. They are using their own vessel as an anchor. The silence that followed the portal's collapse was unlike anything Elena had ever experienced. Where moments before there had been a dark wound in reality itself, now there was only empty space and the fading energy signatures of the Harmony engine's final activation. The Devourer ships that had emerged were gone, not destroyed, but simply erased as the dimensional rift that had allowed them to exist in this universe vanished. Elena stared at the monitors showing the engine chamber aboard the Prometheus. The 12 operators sat motionless in their chairs, their bodies perfectly preserved but their minds. Their minds had transcended individual existence to become something greater. The crystalline structure of the Harmony engine still pulsed with a soft, warm light. Not the harsh brilliance of maximum power, but something gentler. Something that felt unmistakably human. Are they? Admiral Park began, his voice heavy with grief. Princess Lyreley approached the monitor, her violet eyes filled with wonder rather than sorrow. They live, she said softly, but not as they were. They have become part of the engine itself. Their consciousness merged into a collective entity that spans dimensions. They chose to sacrifice their individual existence to save all life in the galaxy. Elena felt tears streaming down her face as she realized the magnitude of what had happened. 12 ordinary humans, a physicist, a pilot, a meditation teacher, and 9 others whose names would be remembered forever, had willingly given up everything to protect a universe that had never even known it was in danger. Can we communicate with them? Elena asked. Lyreley nodded and activated a communication channel. The merger allows them to exist partially in our dimension. They should be able to respond. For a moment, there was only static. Then, impossibly, voices began to emerge from the speakers. Not the individual voices of the 12 operators, but something new. A harmonious blend that somehow contained elements of each of them. Elena, Princess, Admiral, the collective voice said, and Elena could hear Marcus's determination, Dr. Chen's curiosity, Yuki's peace, and the unique qualities of all 12 woven together into something beautiful. We are different now. We can see across dimensions, feel the quantum foam that underlies reality. The portal is truly closed. Not just here, but in the Devourer's home dimension as well. What does that mean? Admiral Park asked. It means they cannot return, the collective consciousness replied. The pathways between dimensions have been sealed. The surviving Devourers are trapped in their own realm, cut off from the energy sources they need to survive. Within a few centuries, they will fade from existence entirely. Elena felt a surge of hope mixed with grief. Humanity had won, but at such a terrible cost. Will you be able to return to us? Is there any way to reverse what's happened? The response came with a warmth that somehow conveyed a smile. We could return to individual existence, but we do not wish to. Elena, you cannot imagine what we have become. We are no longer 12 separate people. We are one being with 12 perspectives, experiencing existence on levels that individual consciousness cannot reach. We have become something new, something that bridges the gap between human and cosmic awareness. Lyrelei leaned forward, her expression intense. What you have achieved is beyond anything my people ever accomplished. The astral courts could merge with our technology, but we could never maintain individual identity within a collective consciousness. You have found a third path, unity without loss of self. That is the human gift, the collective replied. Your species has always found strength in diversity, harmony within conflict. You showed us that we could be one while remaining many. This is why you succeeded where others failed. Over the following days, as the colonial fleet returned to human space, Elena spent hours communicating with the collective consciousness that had once been 12 individual people. They described their new existence in terms that stretched the limits of language, experiencing multiple dimensions simultaneously, feeling the pulse of quantum fields, sensing the deep patterns that connected all life in the universe. But they also remained recognizably human in their concerns. They asked about the families they'd left behind, worried about the political implications of their sacrifice, and even joked about the paperwork nightmare their new existence would create for colonial bureaucracy. The most remarkable thing? Elena told Lyrelei as they stood in the observation deck of the returning fleet, is that they're happy. They gave up everything they were and they're genuinely happy about it. Lyrelei nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps that is the ultimate expression of humanity's greatest strength, the ability to find joy even in sacrifice, to discover hope in transformation. The princess had changed during their journey as well. The profound sadness that had marked her since awakening from her 5-century sleep had lifted, replaced by something Elena had never expected to see in those ancient violet eyes, curiosity about the future. What will you do now? Elena asked. With the Devourers gone, there's no more need for guardians. Lyrelei was quiet for a long moment, watching the stars wheel past the view screen. For 500 years I defined myself by my duty to warn others of the Devourer threat. With that purpose fulfilled, I must discover who I am without it. She turned to Elena with a slight smile. Perhaps I will learn what it means to be human. Your species has shown me that evolution is not just about becoming more powerful. It is about becoming more complete. When the fleet finally reached Earth, they found humanity had been transformed by the crisis. The knowledge that they had faced extinction and survived had sparked a renaissance of unity and purpose. Colonies that had been rivals now worked together on joint projects. Scientists who had guarded their research jealously now shared freely in the pursuit of knowledge. The Colonial Council had approved the construction of a permanent memorial to the 12 operators, not a monument of stone or metal, but a living research station built around the Harmony engine itself. The collective consciousness had requested this, wanting to continue contributing to human advancement even in their transformed state. Elena was appointed as the station's first director, a role that allowed her to continue her conversations with humanity's newest form of life. The collective had begun exploring the fundamental nature of reality itself, making discoveries that advanced human understanding of physics, consciousness, and the deep structure of the universe. They've become our guides into territories we never imagined, Elena explained to a gathering of scientists and philosophers. Not just in terms of technology, but in understanding what it means to be sentient beings in a cosmos full of mysteries. Princess Lyrelei had also found her place in this new order. She divided her time between studying human culture and sharing the vast archives of astral court knowledge. Her people's understanding of bioenergy matrices was revolutionizing medicine, while human scientific methodology was helping unlock secrets the astral courts had never discovered. But perhaps most importantly, she had begun the process of documenting everything: the history of her people, the war against the Devourers, and humanity's unique solution to an impossible problem. It was a record that would ensure future generations understood both the cost and the meaning of their survival. On the first anniversary of the portal's closure, Elena stood in the main chamber of the research station, looking up at the Harmony engine as it pulsed with gentle light. Around her, scientists from a dozen worlds worked on projects that would have been impossible without the guidance of the collective consciousness. "Any regrets?" she asked the engine, knowing that her friends could hear her. "None," came the harmonious reply. "Elena, we have seen the birth of stars and the dance of galaxies. We have touched the quantum foundation of reality and felt the connections that bind all consciousness together. Individual existence was beautiful, but this is transcendent." Lyra joined Elena beside the engine, her ageless features peaceful in the soft light. "Your friends have given all of us a gift beyond measure. They have shown that evolution is not about losing what you are. It is about becoming what you are meant to be." Elena nodded, thinking about the long journey that had brought them to this moment. A sleeping princess, an ancient enemy, and 12 ordinary humans who had chosen to become something extraordinary. It was a story that would be told for generations, not just as history but as a reminder of what was possible when ordinary people chose to do extraordinary things. "What's next?" Elena asked, addressing both Lyra and the collective consciousness. "Exploration," Lyra replied. "Your species has opened doorways we never imagined possible. There are dimensions beyond counting, realities we have never dreamed of. With the collective as our guides, we can begin to explore the true scope of existence." "And protection," added the collective consciousness. "The Devourers are gone, but the universe is vast and full of mysteries. Some may be dangerous. We will watch and warn and stand ready to help any species that faces the kind of extinction we barely avoided." Elena smiled, feeling a deep satisfaction settle over her. Humanity had not just survived its greatest test. It had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever challenges the cosmos might present. The sleeping princess was awake. The ancient enemy was defeated, and 12 heroes had become guardians of reality.